While there is no right or wrong way to play Battletech, admittedly, most of my games, from a narrative perspective, I am playing wrong. And what I mean by that is taking my mechs, taking my lance, and going head to head against your mechs, against your lances. We fight to the death. We fight until our mechs are exploded, scrapped, blown completely apart. Last mech warrior standing. Now, in the lore, outside of a few very, very specific circumstances where the price is blood, the inner sphere is in this kind of interesting flux where the technology is so fragmented, the elite power structure of being a mech warrior is such that you don't want to lose that status, but there is this idea, and that's why so much work is done through mercenaries or proxies, you don't want to lose your mech. So we see in the optional rules this idea of force withdrawal, where once you take a certain amount of damage to internal areas, or your mech is potentially crippled, you will be allowed to back off the table. And we see this in the rules where immediately you'll start backing off to the closest table edge as quickly as possible. You're still able to defend yourself. You're still able to fire and shoot. Maybe your opponent will shoot at you. Maybe they won't. And again, this is optional. So this leads into the question here. When do you withdraw? If you're not playing with those rules, or if you're part of a campaign where you can move off a map, how much damage can your mech take before it explodes or before it is completely destroyed? And I'm not talking about, a lucky headshot opening game. I'm not talking about where you take some critical damage, just snake eyes on the hit, roll for crit, confirm, 3 crits, engine, and you're like, what the heck just happened? It's turn 1. Welcome to Battletech. That can happen. It does happen. You can probably remember when that happened. But pushing that aside, what are some of those internal calculations that we run? So certainly, am I playing in a campaign or not? If I'm playing just head-to-head, then really the mech is up as long as it's up. I don't have to repair it with C-bills. I don't have to scrap other things. If I'm playing as part of a campaign where I have a fixed set of mechs and supplies and we're playing with salvage or C-bills and I can only repair so much, well, there's been mechs that have taken a lot of damage, maybe an arm's blown off. We've gotten to some internals. I've lost some weapons. I've expended all my ammo. The major components, the engine, the gyros, the actuators, they're fine, the sensors. But I'm looking at a major repair bill. So outside of a campaign, inside of a campaign, different. Outside of a campaign, I will fight as long as I can. And once you start taking engine hits, that's where I feel we really have to worry. Once things go to internal, depending on the ammo, that is when one has to worry. Now, this pushes up to the archives, the Battletech playlist. We explored energy mechs versus ammo mechs versus mixed mechs. Certainly energy mechs, a perfect example. It's an awesome mech. The awesome, completely energy dependent. No ammo. Don't have to worry about ammo explosions. You have to put that mech down. Then there's some mechs that are primarily energy based, say like the Grasshopper, but they've got some ammo in there. And then there's a lot of mechs that are a mix of both from that perspective. So certainly if I take a hit to internals and there's an ammo bin in there, I am now faced with the choice, dump the ammo, or if I still need the ammo, obviously if it's machine gun ammo, I'm dumping it. That's the other thing. Just on a side note, when you start the game in Battletech, the battle value assumes a fully stocked mech. Reduce the ammo, potentially, depending on the mech configuration, you're reducing the battle value by a few points. Now, I never bother to do that. The sheets always come with the full compendium of ammo. But at the start of the game, do I really need 200 machine gun shots if it's not a campaign? I'll take 10. I'll take 5. Well, usually 10. And then as we expend it, that makes it less. So you don't always need the full complement. Easier said than done, though, if you're looking at autocannon ammo, especially if it's something like, say, a blackjack, that AC2s, not a lot of damage, but as soon as you're in range, you're going to be firing because you want to put that down on the table. So I want the full ammo. Obviously, longbows, archers, I want the full ammo. But the point is, if we go to internals and there's an ammo bin sitting there, I have to make the decision, am I ejecting it or not? And depending on the phase where we're firing, would I be able to do that? So really, it's the placement of the internals. Now, if I lose an arm or two, okay, that's a perspective. I'm going to lose some weapons. I'm probably still in the fight if it's a heavy or an assault, because I'll have some weapons in the left torso and the right torso. Gyro hits, I find you can possibly navigate. Gyro hits on a light or a medium are more of a death sentence than a heavy or an assault, simply because a heavy and assault, I'm not going to be running. I'm not going to be jumping. I might have to make some pilot checks if I take a lot of damage. That's going to be a little bit more challenging with the gyro, but I can still be in the fight. I could even still potentially stand still. But engine hits, that's where things swap. That's where things get problematic outside of even C-bills to repair a fusion engine. Getting engine hits on heavies and assaults, that's really, really hard, because now, of course, you're trying to generate heat, not only moving, but just shooting. Engine hits on a light mech, depending on the mech, it really doesn't affect it as much. Although I find I don't really take as many engine hits on a light, because by the time things transfer to that, you're just kind of totally cored out and fall apart. So in exploring that, I'm going to turn it over to my fellow mech warriors. When do you think about bugging out? When do you think about now's a good time? It's never retreat, never surrender, a tactical withdrawal. But at the same time, Battletech being Battletech, you can play with the narrative, you cannot. But also, I'll leave you with this story. You have crazy things happen in Battletech, and you're like, well, is this the norm? Is this how the game normally is? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We were playing a hidden mission. I was sending in a lance and some support vehicles to flush out some hidden Davian mechs on the board. So I'm marching my dragon and a few other mechs up the left. I've got a spider and a few up the right. We've got some vehicles and a hunchback up the center. And we're just kind of scanning everything we can. And I know there's at least 2 lances hidden somewhere. I had a couple of ideas. Well, those ideas were completely wrong. Both lances, once detected, materialized right near that dragon, 3 hexes away. So at this point I go, well, the dragon's a loss. And I threw some vehicles there. It's in trouble. It is. I'm not going to run away, though. If I can sit there and anchor it for a turn or two, then I can bring the spider and some other fast-moving stuff. I can bring that hunchback, the hunchy up, and get side or rear armor. So we're going to stick into the fight with this dragon. Imagine being that mech warrior. So we slug it out for like 3 turns. And it got to the point where my opponent was like, look, I got to put this dragon down. This thing is taking 2 lances for now 3 turns. The dragon itself, both arms blown off, engine damage, legs 2 internal. One leg's got like two internal bubbles left of armor. It was just crazy. I'm like, how is this machine still up? A headshot. Just how is this thing still up? Like, just barely a patchwork. So much so that, like, if this was a campaign, there's no salvage. You're never repairing that. Or I should say, it'll take 3 or 4 generations to repair, or maybe you'll swap what's left of the fusion engine and the parts for a beat-up light mech. I mean, it's definitely a downgrade. But it was an interesting thing in Battletech to see just how much punishment and just how much damage these mechs can take. So tactically, when and how do you make that decision on the table?